The carrot cake I'd spent hours perfecting crashed to the floor, frosting splattering across my new shoes. Tyler stood above me, smirking as I knelt to salvage what remained of my 34th birthday celebration. Pathetic. "Just eat it off the floor, Kara," he sneered, champagne glass dangling from his manicured fingers. His friends snickered behind him. But I simply smiled, my eyes meeting his as I stood. He had no idea what midnight would bring or why his phone would soon explode with 47 desperate calls. I still remember the day I got my first calculator. While other 10-year-old girls asked for dolls or craft sets, I begged for a financial calculator. Mom thought it was odd, but Dad saw something in me. "This one's going to manage the family fortune someday," he'd said, ruffling my hair. Tyler, 14 at the time, had rolled his eyes and continued playing his video game, oblivious to how prophetic those words would become. 24 years later, I sat in my office at Westfield Financial Advisors, staring at the partner nameplate they'd just installed on my door. Kara Johnson, partner. After 12 years of 60-hour weeks, client development, and certification exams, I'd finally made it. Unlike Tyler, who'd been handed everything on a silver platter his entire life, our parents had always seen Tyler through rose-colored glasses. His charm outshined my quiet competence at every turn. When he got C's in school, they celebrated because at least he passed. When I got straight A's, it was expected. When he managed to hold a job for 3 whole months, they threw him a party. When I graduated top of my class, they sent flowers that arrived 3 days late. I never held it against them. Parents are human too, with their own biases and blind spots. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt. Watching Tyler coast through life on his good looks and my parents' endless support while I worked twice as hard for half the recognition. 3 years ago, everything changed. My parents were driving to attend my award ceremony at the financial firm when a drunk driver crossed the center line. The call came just as I was about to go on stage. By the time I reached the hospital, they were already gone. The weeks that followed passed in a blur of funeral arrangements and legal meetings. Our father had built a successful construction company from the ground up, Johnson Building Solutions. It had been his pride and joy, employing 30 people and specializing in commercial renovations. Everyone assumed Tyler would take over, being the oldest and Dad's favorite. But Dad knew better. His will left the company management to me, with Tyler as a beneficiary of the trust but no direct control of business operations. He never believed in me. Tyler had complained at the reading of the will, not even trying to hide his bitterness. Even from the grave, he's telling me I'm not good enough. "That's not it," Martin Warren, our family lawyer for 20 years, had explained patiently. "Your father structured things this way to protect everyone's interests. Kara's background in finance makes her better suited to manage the business assets." Tyler hadn't spoken to me for weeks afterward. When he finally did, it was to ask for an advance on his monthly trust distribution. That pattern continued for 3 years. I quietly rebuilt the family business while Tyler enjoyed the benefits. He didn't understand the conditions our father had set in the trust. The company had to remain profitable, continue employing the loyal staff, and maintain certain ethical standards. If these conditions weren't met, the entire estate would be donated to Dad's alma mater. Meanwhile, Tyler lived in a luxury apartment downtown, wore designer clothes, frequented exclusive clubs, and dated Amy, a former model who seemed more interested in his apparent wealth than his personality. I remained in my modest 3-bedroom house just a few blocks from our childhood home, investing my earnings and living well below my means. What Tyler didn't know was how close he'd come to losing everything multiple times. The recession had hit construction hard. I'd poured my own savings into the company, worked nights and weekends, restructured loans, and personally called clients to maintain relationships. Johnson Building Solutions wasn't just surviving, it was now thriving again. But Tyler saw only the results, never the work. 2 weeks before my 34th birthday, I discovered something alarming. While reviewing the quarterly trust reports, I noticed several loans had been taken against family properties. properties I should have been notified about before any financial activities occurred. When I called the banks, they confirmed that someone claiming to be me had authorized the transactions over the phone. I knew immediately it was Tyler. He'd been asking increasingly specific questions about the trust accounts lately, questions that made more sense now. And I'd been too trusting, too willing to believe he was finally taking an interest in the family business. Despite this discovery, I still wanted to celebrate my partnership promotion. I planned a small gathering at Tyler's apartment since mine was being repainted. I spent the entire morning baking our mother's famous carrot cake from scratch, the one she made for every special occasion. 3 layers of moist cake with cream cheese frosting, topped with candied pecans. It was a labor of love that took 4 hours from start to finish. I arrived early to set up, balancing the cake carefully as I knocked on Tyler's door. When he opened it, I could tell he'd been drinking already, though it was barely 5 in the afternoon. "Oh right, your little party," he said, stepping aside. "Some people are coming over later for an investment thing. You'll need to wrap this up by 8. "What investment thing?" I thought we agreed I could have the space until 10. I carefully placed the cake on his kitchen counter and began unpacking the small decorations I'd brought. "Plans change, sis. I've got some serious players coming to discuss opportunities. Unlike your boring, number-crunching job, this could actually make us real money." I bit my tongue. The boring, number-crunching job had saved his inheritance multiple times, but arguing wouldn't help. "Fine. We'll finish by 8. As I arranged appetizers on the table, Tyler circled the cake, eyeing it with apparent disdain. "You still make this thing every year? Isn't it time to grow up and order from a bakery like a normal person?" "It's Mom's recipe," I said simply. "It means something to me." He snorted. "Yeah, well, Mom's not here anymore, is she?" His words stung more than he knew. I missed our parents every day. But Tyler seemed to have moved on remarkably fast. Sometimes I wondered if he missed them at all, or just the financial support they'd provided. When my friends started arriving, Tyler made himself scarce, retreating to his home office. But I caught glimpses of him watching us from the hallway, a strange expression on his face. When we gathered around the table for the cake ceremony, he suddenly appeared with 3 of his friends, expensive suits and predatory smiles. "Make a wish, little sis," he said, his voice dripping with fake enthusiasm. I should have known then that something was wrong. Tyler was never interested in birthday traditions. But I closed my eyes anyway, made my wish, and blew out the candles. That's when everything went sideways. "Let me help you with that," Tyler said, reaching for the cake. Before I could protest, he lifted it from the table. Then, with a slight twist of his wrists, he let it slip from his hands. The cake seemed to fall in slow motion, a perfect arc of destruction ending with a splat against the hardwood floor. Cream cheese frosting spattered across my new shoes, the ones I'd splurged on to celebrate my promotion. Candied pecans scattered like shrapnel. My friends gasped. The room went silent. I knelt instinctively, trying to salvage something, anything from the wreckage. The cake I'd spent hours making, the symbol of our mother's love, ruined in seconds. "Oops," Tyler said, not even attempting to sound sincere. "Butterfingers." I looked up at him, shocked by the deliberate cruelty. That's when he said it, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Pathetic, just eat it off the floor, Kara." His friends snickered. One of them, a man with a gold watch too large for his wrist, actually took out his phone to record my humiliation. From the corner of the room, I saw Amy, Tyler's girlfriend, watching with wide eyes. She took a step forward as if to help, then stopped when Tyler shot her a warning glance. Something shifted inside me. Years of making excuses for Tyler, years of protecting him, years of honoring our mother's last wish to always look after your brother crystallized into a single moment of clarity. I stood up, cake frosting still on my fingers, and smiled directly at him. "I'll clean this up," I said calmly. "Don't let me interrupt your important meeting." The calm in my voice seemed to unnerve him more than if I'd screamed. His smirk faltered for just a second, My friends helped me clean up while offering to continue the celebration elsewhere, but I declined. I needed time to think. As they filed out with sympathetic hugs, I stayed behind to finish cleaning, insisting Tyler go prepare for his meeting. While wiping frosting from the floorboards, I noticed a folder that had fallen from a side table in the commotion. Papers had spilled out, and as I gathered them, financial statements caught my eye. Not just any statements. Trust account statements with my forged signature on transfer authorizations. I quickly slipped the papers back into the folder and tucked it under my arm. From the hallway, voices grew louder as Tyler's serious players began to arrive. Men and women in expensive clothes, laughing too loudly, drinking Tyler's top-shelf liquor. I recognized a few from local business circles. Wealthy individuals always looking for the next big return. Retreating to the kitchen to wash my hands, I noticed more documents on Tyler's desk in the adjacent home office. The door was ajar, and what I saw made my stomach drop. Loan applications, property assessments, preliminary sales contracts for assets that weren't his to sell. This wasn't new behavior. Since our parents' death, Tyler's disrespect had grown increasingly brazen. First, it was small things like forgetting family dinners or making snide comments about my career. Then came bigger offenses, like borrowing my credit card for a shopping spree or telling family friends I was having emotional problems when I questioned his spending. I'd always forgiven him, always cleaned up his messes, always made excuses. He's grieving. He's finding himself. He's still adjusting to life without mom and dad. But the cake incident felt different. It wasn't just disrespect. It was public humiliation, a deliberate attempt to break me down. As I gathered my belongings to leave, Tyler intercepted me in the foyer, champagne glass in hand. Leaving so soon? The party's just getting started. His eyes were slightly unfocused. His speech too precise. The sign he was trying to hide how much he'd had to drink. I have an early meeting tomorrow. Thanks for hosting. I kept my voice neutral, unwilling to give him the satisfaction of seeing me upset. Before you go, come see what I got. He grabbed my elbow, steering me toward the underground parking garage. It's sweet. The elevator opened to reveal a gleaming black sports car, its sleek lines capturing the overhead lights. A Porsche 911 Turbo, easily worth $200,000. Just picked it up yesterday, Tyler said, running his hand lovingly over the hood. 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. Nice, I said flatly. Didn't know the trust distributions covered something like this. I've got investments, Kara. Not all of us need to count pennies for a living. What investments? As far as I knew, Tyler hadn't held a job in 3 years. Any investments would have shown up in his financial disclosures for the trust. How exactly did you pay for this? I asked. His smile turned cold. Don't worry about it. I've got everything under control. As he opened the driver's door to show me the interior, a financing document on the passenger seat caught my eye. My name was on it. My social security number. My forged signature. Tyler had bought the car using my identity. The shock must have shown on my face because Tyler quickly snatched the paper away. Just some paperwork they're still processing, he said dismissively. I was still processing this discovery when my phone rang. Martin Warren, our family lawyer. I stepped away to answer. Kara, we have a situation, Martin said without preamble. There have been some unusual transactions from the trust accounts. Large withdrawals and transfers to accounts I don't recognize. How large are we talking? Nearly $300,000 in the last month alone. I need your authorization to freeze the accounts until we can verify these transactions. $300,000. The approximate value of Tyler's new car, plus what looked like significant gambling losses, based on the statements I'd glimpsed. Do it, I said. Freeze everything. And Martin, I think we need a full audit of all accounts Tyler has access to. When I hung up, Tyler was watching me with narrowed eyes. Business call? On your birthday? Something like that? I headed for the exit. Enjoy your party. "You should stay," he called after me. "Meet some real players instead of the middle-class drones you usually hang out with." I didn't dignify that with a response. As the elevator doors closed between us, I caught one last glimpse of his face. The smirk was back, but something else lurked behind his eyes. Fear. Good. He should be afraid. Because for the first time in our relationship, I wasn't going to clean up his mess. I was going to expose it. The next morning, I went straight to Martin's office instead of my own. He had already begun the audit, his desk covered with account statements and legal documents. "It's worse than I thought," he said, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Tyler has been systematically draining company assets for at least 18 months. "How did we miss this?" I asked, scanning the papers in front of me. "Clever misdirection. He started with small amounts, then gradually increased. He also created fake vendor accounts that were actually routing to his personal accounts. Classic embezzlement technique. I spent the next 3 hours reviewing everything, memories surfacing with each new discovery. The time Tyler had insisted on attending the meeting with our insurance broker, only to change the policy beneficiaries afterward. The family vacation home in Maine that was mysteriously requiring repairs whenever I suggested using it. The antique furniture from our parents' house that disappeared, supposedly donated to charity but more likely sold to finance Tyler's lifestyle. "We need to quantify the total damage," I said finally, "and figure out where the money went." Martin nodded grimly. "I've called in a forensic accountant. They'll start tomorrow. In the meantime, I've frozen all accounts Tyler has access to, including the trust distributions. He's going to be furious. He's going to be in legal trouble if we find what I think we'll find. This goes beyond family squabbles, Kara. This is criminal activity." My phone buzzed with texts from Tyler throughout the day, escalating from casual questions about account issues to outright demands for money. I ignored them all, focusing instead on understanding the full scope of his betrayal. That evening, I received an unexpected call from Jackson Phillips. I recognized the name from industry circles. He was a respected ethical investor, known for supporting sustainable businesses. "Miss Johnson? We haven't formally met, but I was at your brother's gathering last night. Mr. Phillips, what can I do for you? I wanted to warn you. Your brother approached me with an investment opportunity involving Johnson Building Solutions. The numbers didn't add up, and when I asked questions, he became evasive. I've heard similar concerns from others he's approached." My heart sank. What kind of investment was he proposing? A real estate development fund supposedly backed by Johnson construction contracts. He was promising 20% returns, minimum buy-in of $50,000. Several people have already committed funds. 20% returns? Johnson Building Solutions was healthy, but not capable of guaranteeing returns like that. This was starting to sound like a Ponzi scheme. "Thank you for telling me this. May I ask why you're coming to me instead of just walking away?" There was a pause on the line. "Your father helped my family once, many years ago. He extended credit to my father's small business when banks wouldn't. It saved our livelihood. I'd like to return the favor by preventing his son from destroying the company he built." After thanking him and getting his contact information, I decided to dig deeper into Tyler's recent activities. I started with his credit card statements, which were accessible through the trust accounts. The charges told a disturbing story: exclusive nightclubs, high-end restaurants, designer boutiques. But more concerning were the repeated charges from online gambling sites and cash withdrawals near Blackwood Casino. A quick online search confirmed my suspicions. Victor Blackwood, owner of the casino, had a reputation for offering generous credit to wealthy patrons and brutal collection methods when they couldn't pay. My investigation was interrupted by another call, this time from a real estate agent I knew through business connections. "Kara, I'm confused about the Johnson property on Maple Street. I received listing documents, but I thought that house was staying in your family." The Johnson property on Maple Street was our childhood home, where our parents had lived until their deaths. Dad had specifically outlined in his will that the house should remain in the family for at least 20 years. I didn't authorize any listing. "Who sent the documents?" "Your brother. He said you were both in agreement about selling. The listing price is well below market value, which raised red flags for me. Below market value meant a quick sale. Tyler needed cash, and fast. By evening, I had compiled enough evidence to understand what I was dealing with. Tyler wasn't just spending recklessly, he was in serious financial trouble. Gambling debts, the unauthorized car purchase, and what appeared to be a small-scale investment scam targeting our parents' wealthy friends. I decided to make one last attempt at understanding my brother before taking more drastic action. I drove to his apartment, stopping to pick up coffee as a peace offering. When he answered the door, his appearance shocked me. His eyes were bloodshot, his expensive shirt wrinkled as if he'd slept in it. "Finally decided to return my calls?" he snapped, but stepped aside to let me in. The apartment was filled with people I didn't recognize, an impromptu party in full swing despite the early hour. Amy sat in a corner, looking uncomfortable as two men I'd never seen before engaged her in conversation. "Can we talk privately?" I asked Tyler. He led me to the kitchen, accepting the coffee with a grunt. "If this is about the accounts being frozen, I already know. Very cute power play, sis." "It's not a power play. It's due diligence after discovering unauthorized transfers." He rolled his eyes. "It's family money. I'm family. I don't see the problem." "The problem is you're spending recklessly, Tyler. And worse, you're involving my name and the company in schemes that could be illegal." "Oh, here we go. Saint Kara, always following the rules." He took a swig of coffee and grimaced. "God, no sugar? You're as bitter as your drinks." I ignored the jab. "I know about the Porsche purchased in my name. I know about the gambling debts. I know you're trying to sell our parents' house against the terms of the will. What I don't know is why. The trust provides more than enough for a comfortable lifestyle." "A comfortable lifestyle?" He laughed sharply. "Maybe by your standards. Some of us want more than a pathetic little house and a job counting other people's money." His words stung, but I pressed on. "Is someone pressuring you? Are you in trouble? Because if you are, we can fix it together." Something flickered in his eyes, vulnerability quickly masked by anger. "I don't need fixing. I need you to stop micromanaging my life and give me what's rightfully mine." Before I could respond, one of his friends called him back to the party. "We're making plans for the Hamptons next weekend. You in?" Tyler turned to me with a cold smile. "Duty calls. Some of us have a social life." He raised his voice so everyone could hear. "You can see yourself out, right? Wouldn't want to keep my pathetic little sister from her spreadsheets any longer." The room erupted in laughter. Heat rushed to my face as I stood there, publicly humiliated for the second time in as many days. As I turned to leave, I caught Amy's eye. She mouthed, "I'm sorry," before quickly looking away. Outside in my car, I sat for long minutes, hands shaking on the steering wheel. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about respect, about boundaries, about the systematic dismantling of everything our parents had built. My phone rang again. "Martin. The forensic accountant found something," he said without preamble. "Tyler has been telling people you're mentally unstable. He's filed preliminary paperwork seeking power of attorney over you, claiming you're unfit to manage the family assets due to delusional behavior following your parents' death." The final betrayal. Tyler wasn't just stealing from me, he was trying to take everything, to erase me completely from the equation. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. "We fight back," Martin said simply. "But Kara, this will get ugly before it gets better. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about the cake crashing to the floor, about the smirk on Tyler's face, about our father's belief in me and our mother's final wish. "Yes," I said, "I'm ready." The next day, I met with Martin in his office to formalize our strategy. The mahogany desk between us was covered with legal documents, financial statements, and a thick folder labeled Johnson Estate, Contingency Plan. "Your father was smarter than most," Martin said, tapping the folder. "He anticipated something like this might happen, though perhaps not to this extent. He built safeguards into the trust." "What kind of safeguards?" Martin opened the folder and pushed a document toward me. "This is a codicil to the will, executed 6 months before your parents' accident. It specifies that if either beneficiary engages in criminal activity, attempts to defraud the trust, or otherwise acts against the interests of Johnson Building Solutions, The trustee has authority to modify benefit distributions. I'm the trustee, I said slowly, understanding dawning. Exactly. You have the legal authority to cut Tyler off, completely. The weight of that power settled uncomfortably on my shoulders. That would destroy him. He's already destroying himself, Martin countered gently, and he's trying to take you and your parents' legacy down with him. I stared at the document, remembering my mother's final days in the hospital after the accident. Dad had died instantly, but Mom had lingered for 26 hours. Long enough for final words, final wishes. Always look after your brother, she'd whispered, her hand cool and light in mine. Family first, always. I'd promised her I would. It was the last thing I'd ever promised her. I need time to think, I told Martin. This isn't just about business or money. It's about my family. He nodded, understanding. Take the time you need, but don't take too long. From what our investigation has uncovered, Tyler is in deep with some dangerous people. The kind who don't send late notices when payments are missed. Back at my office, I buried myself in work, trying to find clarity through the familiar comfort of numbers and projections. My assistant interrupted around noon. There's a Jackson Phillips here to see you? He doesn't have an appointment. I remembered our phone conversation from the day before. Send him in. Jackson was younger than I'd expected, maybe in his early 40s, with thoughtful eyes and a reserved manner that seemed at odds with the typical investor profile. Thank you for seeing me without notice, he said, taking the seat I offered. I've been giving our conversation some thought, and I wanted to share some additional concerns about your brother's activities. Over the next hour, Jackson detailed multiple instances where Tyler had approached investors with increasingly outlandish proposals, all supposedly backed by Johnson Building Solutions assets. Most concerning were promises of returns that could only be achieved through fraud. I've heard rumors that some initial investors have already received payouts, Jackson said carefully. That's a classic sign of a Ponzi scheme. Using new investor money to pay earlier investors, creating the illusion of success. Do you have names of people who've invested? I asked. He hesitated. Some. Many are reluctant to come forward because they know what they're participating in skirts regulatory boundaries. But if it helps, I'm willing to make introductions. As he was leaving, Jackson paused at the door. Your father was an honest man, Miss Johnson. In business circles, that's rarer than it should be. Whatever you decide to do, don't let your brother tarnish that legacy. His words echoed in my mind as I drove home that evening. The conflict between family loyalty and moral responsibility growing more pronounced with each revelation. At a red light, I made an impulsive decision and turned toward Tyler's apartment instead of my own. I needed to try one more time to reach him, to understand what had driven him to such desperate measures. Perhaps there was something I was missing, some explanation that would make sense of his behavior. When I arrived, the security guard gave me a sympathetic look. He's not in, Miss Johnson. Left about an hour ago with Miss Reynolds. Amy Reynolds, Tyler's girlfriend. Something about the guard's expression made me ask, did something happen? He shifted uncomfortably. Not my place to say, but there was a bit of a scene earlier. A gentleman came looking for Mr. Johnson. Very insistent. When Mr. Johnson couldn't be found, he wasn't pleased. This gentleman, did he leave a name? No name, just said your brother would know who came calling. Oh, and he left something. The guard reached below his desk and produced a small box, said to make sure Mr. Johnson got it. I took the box, thanking the guard. In my car, I carefully opened it. Inside was a single casino chip worth $5,000 and a note. Final courtesy, the clock is ticking. V.B. Victor Blackwood, the casino owner. My phone rang as I was contemplating this development. An unknown number. Cara Johnson speaking. It's Amy. Tyler's girlfriend's voice was hushed, background noise suggesting she was calling from a public place. Can we meet? There's something you should know. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop halfway between our locations. When I arrived, Amy was already there, nervously shredding a napkin, her usual polished appearance replaced by jeans and a simple sweater. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. I don't know who else to talk to. What's going on, Amy? She looked around before answering, as if afraid of being overheard. Tyler's in trouble. Serious trouble. He owes money to Victor Blackwood. A lot of money. How much? Over $400,000. She met my eyes directly. I didn't know how bad it was until recently. He kept saying he had a big deal coming through that would fix everything. But yesterday, one of Blackwood's men came to the apartment. He gave Tyler 48 hours to pay, or... She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Or what, Amy? He said they'd start collecting in other ways. He looked at me when he said it. Her voice broke slightly. I'm scared, Kara. I reached across the table, covering her trembling hand with mine. Where's Tyler now? Meeting with some potential investors. He's desperate to raise the money before tomorrow night. More innocent people being drawn into Tyler's schemes. The situation was spiraling out of control. There's something else, Amy continued, reaching into her purse. She withdrew a small velvet box and placed it on the table. Do you recognize this? I opened the box to find our grandmother's engagement ring. A 3-carat emerald, surrounded by small diamonds, passed down through 4 generations of Johnson women. According to our parents' will, it was supposed to come to me. Tyler gave this to me last month, Amy said softly. He said it was a promise ring, that his grandmother would have wanted me to have it. But last night I overheard him on the phone, trying to arrange a buyer for it. He didn't know I had it with me. I thought you should have it. I stared at the ring, emotions warring within me. Anger at Tyler for taking something meant for me. Sadness that he'd use a family heirloom as collateral. And a new emotion I hadn't expected. Pity for Amy, caught in Tyler's web of deceit. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Amy's eyes filled with tears. Because it's wrong. All of it. The lies, the manipulation, the way he treats you. I was dazzled by the lifestyle at first, but now I see it for what it is. Empty, hollow. She pushed the ring box closer to me. Take it. It's yours by right. I closed my hand around the small velvet box, feeling the weight of family history within. What will you do now? Leave, tonight. I have a friend in Chicago who's been offering me a place to stay. She hesitated. I just wanted to do one right thing before I went. As we parted ways outside the coffee shop, Amy turned back suddenly. Kara? Be careful. Tyler isn't himself anymore. There's a desperation to him that scares me. I watched her walk away, the grandmother's ring heavy in my pocket. The weight of family promises even heavier on my heart. My mother's final wish echoed in my mind. Always look after your brother. Family first, always. But what did looking after someone really mean? Enabling their worst behaviors? Or holding them accountable with the hope they might find a better path? As I drove home, I made my decision. True love wasn't about blindly protecting someone from consequences. Sometimes the most loving thing you could do was to let those consequences happen, to create space for genuine change and growth. I pulled over and called Martin. I'm ready to proceed, I said, but we do this my way. Tyler needs consequences, but he also needs a path back if he's willing to take it. Understood, Martin said. I'll draw up the paperwork immediately. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my grandmother's ring, the documents from Martin, and an old photo of our family from happier times. Tyler and I standing between our parents, all of us smiling in the summer sun, the future bright with possibilities. I'm sorry, Mom, I whispered to the empty room, but this is what looking after him really means. The next morning began a methodical process of building an airtight case against Tyler, while simultaneously protecting the family assets. I reached out to my professional network, calling in favors from colleagues in banking, real estate, and corporate security. Janice, a former roommate now working in digital forensics, helped recover deleted emails from the company servers, showing Tyler had been planning his schemes for over a year. Dale, a college friend at the county records office, provided documentation of all recent property transactions involving Johnson family holdings. Sarah, my mentor at Westfield Financial, connected me with her contacts at 3 banks where Tyler had opened fraudulent accounts. By mid-afternoon, I had compiled enough evidence to justify not only cutting off Tyler's trust fund, but potentially bringing criminal charges. The scope of his deception was breathtaking. Beyond the embezzlement and unauthorized loans, he had forged my signature on at least 17 different legal documents, created a shell company that billed Johnson Building Solutions for non-existent consulting services, used company credit cards for personal expenses, totaling over $120,000, attempted to transfer ownership of 3 family properties to his name alone, solicited investments for a non-existent development project using forged company letterhead. "We should take this to the district attorney," Martin said when I showed him the evidence. "This goes beyond civil remedies." "Not yet," I replied. "I want to give him one chance to make this right." Martin looked skeptical but nodded. "Your call. But I'm preparing the criminal complaint as a contingency." I was heading back to my office when my cell phone rang. Unknown number. "Is this Kara Johnson?" a gruff male voice asked when I answered. "Yes. Who's calling?" "My name's not important. What's important is that your brother owes Mr. Blackwood a substantial sum of money. Since he seems unable to pay, we're exploring alternative arrangements." A chill ran down my spine. "I'm not responsible for my brother's debts." "No, but you are responsible for the family business. The business that could easily suffer an unfortunate accident. Fire codes can be so tricky to maintain." "Are you threatening me?" "Just having a business conversation, Miss Johnson. Your brother suggested you might be willing to resolve his financial obligations using company resources for family harmony." Of course he had. Tyler was trying to use Blackwood to intimidate me. Any issues between my brother and Mr. Blackwood are their business. Any threats against Johnson Building Solutions will be reported to the police immediately. "That would be unwise," the voice replied smoothly. "Police reports are so public, your company's reputation could suffer. Think about your employees." After ending the call, I sat in my car, hands shaking slightly. This had escalated beyond family drama into something potentially dangerous. I needed to accelerate my timeline. I drove straight to Johnson Building Solutions headquarters, gathering the executive team for an emergency meeting. I explained the situation in carefully chosen words, leaving out the more sordid details but making it clear that Tyler had been misrepresenting his authority within the company. Effective immediately, Tyler Johnson has no authority to conduct business on behalf of this company, I informed them. Any documents, contracts, or communications from him should be forwarded to me directly. No exceptions. After securing the business, I turned my attention to the investment scheme Tyler had been running. Using Jackson Phillips' contacts, I began reaching out to potential victims, building a clear picture of how the scheme worked. Most were longtime family, friends, or business associates of our father, people who trusted the Johnson name. Tyler had used that trust to solicit investments in a fictional commercial development, promising exclusive access and guaranteed returns. The most disturbing discovery came from Eleanor Weston, my mother's best friend. "Tyler told me you were having emotional problems," she confided when we met for tea. "He said you were making irrational decisions about the business, and he needed to raise capital without your knowledge to save jobs." "And you believed him?" I couldn't keep the hurt from my voice. Eleanor looked ashamed. "He was very convincing. Said you'd been seeing a therapist, having episodes, that your parents' death had broken something in you." She reached for my hand. "I should have called you directly. I'm so sorry." By evening, I had identified 12 investors who had given Tyler a total of nearly $700,000. Most of that money was already gone, presumably to gambling debts and Tyler's extravagant lifestyle. There would be no easy way to make them whole without using my own funds or company assets. I was compiling contact information for all the victims when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a man I didn't recognize. Stocky build, expensive suit that somehow looked wrong on him, like costume wear. "Miss Johnson," he called through the door. "I'm here on behalf of Victor Blackwood. We need to have a conversation about your brother's situation." I didn't open the door. I have nothing to discuss with Mr. Blackwood. My brother's debts are his own. Mr. Blackwood disagrees. Family obligations and all that. The man's tone was conversational, as if we were discussing the weather. "Your brother used family property as collateral. Property we now have interest in. Any such agreement would be fraudulent. Tyler has no authority to offer family assets as collateral. That's a legal distinction, Miss Johnson. Mr. Blackwood operates in a more practical reality. The man paused. He's authorized me to offer a solution. The debt for the deed to the Johnson family home. Clean and simple. The family home. The house where we grew up, where 5 generations of Johnsons had lived. The home our father had explicitly protected in his will. That's not possible, I said firmly. The house isn't available for transfer. Then perhaps you could liquidate some company assets. We're reasonable people. I think you should leave now, I said, pulling out my phone, before I call the police. The man sighed audibly. Your brother said you'd be difficult. I'll relay your decision to Mr. Blackwood. But Miss Johnson? This conversation isn't over. It's barely begun. His footsteps receded down my front walk. Through the window, I watched him get into a black SUV and drive away. I immediately called Martin to update him on this new development. Then Jackson Phillips, whose experience with ethical investment might provide insight on handling the victims of Tyler's scheme. I can help organize the investors, Jackson offered. Many will be reluctant to admit they were deceived, but together, they might be willing to pursue recovery options. Thank you, I said sincerely. I don't want these people to suffer for my brother's actions. There was a pause on the line. If you don't mind me asking, what are you planning to do about your brother? It was the question I'd been wrestling with since discovering the full extent of Tyler's betrayal. The easy answer would be to turn everything over to the authorities, let the legal system deal with him. But that didn't feel right. Despite everything, he was still my brother. Still, the boy who had taught me to ride a bike, who had defended me against bullies in elementary school, who had once been capable of kindness and love. I'm going to give him a choice, I said finally. A real one. With real consequences either way. After hanging up, I sat down at my kitchen table with a legal pad and began outlining exactly what those choices and consequences would be. By midnight, I had a clear plan. I would confront Tyler the next day, lay everything out plainly, and offer him one final chance at redemption. As I was preparing for bed, my phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. This is Amy. Made it to Chicago safely. Before I left, I copied some files from Tyler's laptop. Sending them now. Be careful. Minutes later, my email alert sounded. The attachments from Amy contained the final pieces I needed. Detailed records of Tyler's gambling losses, communications with Victor Blackwood, and most damning of all, a draft agreement transferring all of Tyler's trust fund rights to Blackwood in exchange for debt forgiveness. He was planning to sign away his entire inheritance to cover gambling debts. With this final evidence in hand, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. The path forward was clear now. Tomorrow would bring confrontation, but also the possibility of resolution. One way or another, the cycle of deception would end. I fell asleep clutching our grandmother's ring, the weight of family history in my palm, the responsibility of family future on my shoulders. I spent the morning finalizing my strategy with Martin, reviewing the evidence one last time, and preparing the necessary legal documents. By noon, everything was in place. I had 2 sets of papers. One that would preserve some portion of Tyler's inheritance if he cooperated, and another that would cut him off completely if he refused. Are you sure you want to do this alone? Martin asked as we concluded our meeting. I could come with you, or we could have security present. This needs to be between Tyler and me, I said firmly. Family business. Before leaving Martin's office, I made one final call to Victor Blackwood himself. A conversation arranged through proper legal channels rather than intimidating messengers. The call was brief but productive. Blackwood was a businessman first, thug second. Once I explained the legal realities of Tyler's situation, he proved surprisingly amenable to a structured repayment plan. I have no interest in destroying families, Miss Johnson, he said, his voice smoother than I'd expected. I simply expect debts to be honored. Your proposal is acceptable. That matter settled, I drove to our family home, the place where I'd decided the confrontation should happen. Tyler still had a key, and I'd asked him to meet me there at 3 o'clock, saying only that I wanted to discuss the financial situation privately. The house was exactly as our parents had left it. Dad's reading glasses still on the side table next to his favorite chair. Mom's gardening magazine collection neatly arranged on the bookshelf. Family photos covering the walls, telling the story of our lives together. I ran my fingers along the kitchen counter where Mom had taught me to bake. Stood in the doorway of Dad's study where he'd explained compound interest to me when I was 10. These walls held our history, good and bad. It was the right place for what needed to happen next. Tyler arrived 20 minutes late, as expected. He'd always treated punctuality as optional. When he walked in, I was sitting at the kitchen table, documents spread before me, a pot of coffee brewing. "Dramatic choice of location," he commented, looking around with feigned nonchalance. "Trying to guilt me with childhood memories? Just thought we should have this conversation somewhere private." He poured himself coffee without asking and leaned against the counter rather than sitting down. "So what's this about?" "Your text sounded ominous." "It's about everything, Tyler. The embezzlement, the fraudulent investments, the gambling debts, the car purchased in my name, the attempt to sell this house. All of it." His expression didn't change, but his knuckles whitened around the coffee mug. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do." I pushed a folder toward him. "This contains copies of all the evidence I've gathered. Bank statements, forged documents, witness testimonies, records of your gambling losses." He didn't touch the folder. "Been playing detective, have you? Always were a control freak." "This isn't about control. It's about responsibility. Dad trusted me to protect the family legacy. To protect you, even from yourself if necessary." That struck a nerve. Tyler slammed his mug down, coffee sloshing over the rim. "I don't need your protection. I never asked for it." "No, but you've certainly exploited it." I remained calm, refusing to match his anger. "Every time you've gotten in trouble, I've bailed you out. Every mess you've made, I've cleaned up." "Not anymore, Tyler." He pushed away from the counter, beginning to pace. "So what now? You've gathered your little evidence folder. Going to turn me into the police? Have your own brother arrested? That depends on you." I slid a second folder toward him. "These are your options." "Options?" He laughed bitterly. "How generous of you." "Option 1, I continued as if he hadn't spoken. "You agree to enter a treatment program for your gambling addiction. You accept a position at Johnson Building Solutions, starting at entry level with a modest salary. You live within your means in a company apartment. Your trust fund distributions are managed by a third-party fiduciary with strict conditions. You make restitution to the people you've defrauded, over time, from your earnings." His face flushed with anger. "You want to turn me into your employee? Your charity case? I want to give you a chance to rebuild your life with dignity, to be the man Dad always believed you could be. And if I refuse this generous offer?" Sarcasm dripped from his words. Option 2, I opened the third folder. I turn all evidence over to the district attorney. I provide testimony and full cooperation. You face criminal charges for fraud, embezzlement, identity theft, and securities violations. Your trust fund is terminated permanently under the Criminal Activity Clause. You lose everything. For the first time, fear flickered across his face. "You wouldn't do that to your own brother." "I don't want to, but I will if necessary." I met his gaze steadily. "The choice is yours, Tyler." He lunged forward suddenly, slamming his hands on the table, looming over me. "You self-righteous bitch, you've always been jealous of me, always resented that Mom and Dad loved me more. This is just your pathetic attempt at control." I didn't flinch. "Is that really what you think? That this is about jealousy?" "What else would it be? You've never been able to stand that I live life on my terms, that I don't count pennies and hide behind spreadsheets like you do. My spreadsheets are the only reason you still have an inheritance at all," I said quietly. "Do you have any idea how close the company came to bankruptcy after Dad died? How many nights I stayed up restructuring debt, renegotiating contracts, personally calling clients to keep them from pulling their business. That gave him pause. What are you talking about? Dad's company was solid. The recession hit construction hard. The company was 3 months from insolvency when I took over. I put my own savings into it, worked 80-hour weeks, took no salary for the first year, all to preserve what Dad built. All to ensure you could continue living the lifestyle you felt entitled to. He stepped back, uncertainty crossing his face. No one told me. You never asked. You never showed any interest in the business beyond what it could provide you. Tyler turned away, running his hands through his hair in frustration. So now what? You want me to grovel? To thank you for your sacrifice? I want you to grow up, Tyler, to take responsibility for your actions and their consequences. To be worthy of the opportunities you've been given. And if I can't be what you want me to be, what then? Then you make your choice, and we both live with it. He paced the kitchen in silence for several minutes, emotions warring on his face. Finally, he turned to me with a calculated smile. You know what? I don't believe you'll do it. Turn in your own brother? Mom would never forgive you. It was his last attempt at manipulation, using our mother's memory as a shield. I'd anticipated this move. Mom wanted me to look after you. But looking after someone doesn't mean enabling their worst behaviors. I stood up, gathering the folders. You have until midnight to decide. After that, I proceed with option 2. His smile faltered. Midnight tonight? That's not enough time. It's more time than you gave the people you defrauded. More time than you gave me when you ruined my birthday and humiliated me in front of my friends. I moved toward the door, but Tyler stepped in front of me, his expression suddenly desperate. Wait, Kara, you don't understand. Blackwood isn't just going to wait patiently for his money. He made threats. I've already spoken with Mr. Blackwood. We've reached an understanding. You? What? You talked to Blackwood? His face paled. What did you tell him? The truth. That you have no access to family assets, that any collateral you offered was fraudulent, but that a payment plan could be arranged if he's patient. And he agreed to that? Just like that? Unlike you, Tyler, most people respond to honesty and direct communication. Something broke in him then. The facade of confidence crumbled, leaving only the frightened boy beneath. I didn't mean for it to go this far, he whispered. It started small. Just a loan here, a little creative accounting there, then the gambling. It got out of control so fast. It was the first genuine thing he'd said since arriving. Not an excuse, just an acknowledgement. I know, I said more gently. Addiction does that. It's why the treatment program is non-negotiable if you choose option 1. He sank into a kitchen chair, suddenly looking exhausted. Can I really come back from this? All the people I've hurt, the bridges I've burned? It won't be easy. Or quick. But yes, it's possible. I left him there at the kitchen table, surrounded by family memories and the weight of his choices. Midnight, Tyler. Call me when you've decided. Back at my apartment, I prepared for either outcome. If Tyler chose redemption, I had treatment center information ready, employment paperwork prepared, and a structured restitution plan outlined. If he chose otherwise, I had the criminal complaint drafted and contacts at the district attorney's office standing by. At 7:30, my phone rang. Jackson Phillips. I've spoken with most of the investors, he reported. 9 are willing to participate in a structured repayment plan rather than pressing charges, provided there's proper oversight and accountability. And the others? Still considering. They want to know what happens to Tyler before they decide. That's fair. I should have an answer by tonight. At 9:45, another call. Amy from Chicago. Have you spoken to him? She asked. Concern evident in her voice. Yes. I've given him until midnight to decide what happens next. I hope he makes the right choice, she said softly. Despite everything, I think there's still good in him somewhere. I wanted to believe that too. 10:30 brought a call from Martin, checking on my safety and mental state. Whatever happens, you've done everything possible, he assured me. The rest is up to Tyler. The minutes ticked by. 11 o'clock. 11:30. With each passing moment, my hope dimmed. Perhaps I'd overestimated Tyler's capacity for change. Perhaps the easy path of denial was too tempting. At 11:58, just as I was preparing to make the first call to the district attorney, my phone lit up. Tyler. I'll do it, he said without preamble. Option 1, all of it. The treatment, the job, the restitution. Whatever it takes. Relief washed over me. You're sure? Once we start down this path, there's no going back. I'm sure. His voice was steadier than I'd heard it in years. I don't want to lose everything. Not my freedom, not the family name, and not my sister. It was the closest thing to an apology I was likely to get right now. It would have to be enough. Be at Martin's office tomorrow at 9. We'll formalize everything then. I'll be there. He paused. Kara, thank you for not giving up on me when you had every reason to. After we hung up, I sat in silence for a few moments, processing the day's events. Then I began making calls. Not just one or two, but dozens. Every person and institution affected by Tyler's actions needed to be notified of the path forward. Martin was first, then Jackson, to update the investors. The banks where fraudulent accounts had been opened. The car dealership that had processed the fraudulent purchase. The family friends who had been misled about my mental state. The executives at Johnson Building Solutions. The treatment center to secure Tyler's place. By midnight, the count stood at 47 calls, 47 conversations, explaining, arranging, negotiating, rebuilding what Tyler had damaged. As I made the final call, I found myself back at the kitchen table where this all began, with the destroyed birthday cake. Sometimes destruction is necessary before reconstruction can begin. The cake couldn't be salvaged, but something new and possibly stronger could be built from the aftermath. The wall clock struck 12 as I completed the 47th call. Midnight. The deadline. The turning point. I thought about Tyler sitting alone in our parents' house, facing the consequences of his actions for perhaps the first time in his life. It wouldn't be an easy road for either of us. Trust, once broken, takes far longer to rebuild than it does to destroy. But we had taken the first step. Family first, always. Not by enabling destruction, but by demanding growth. Not by avoiding consequences, but by facing them together. That was the true meaning of my promise to our mother. A promise I had finally found the courage to keep. 6 months passed in a blur of paperwork, meetings, and gradual rebuilding. The day after our confrontation, Tyler had indeed shown up at Martin's office, signed all the necessary documents, and begun the process of making amends. The first month was the hardest. Tyler spent 30 days in an inpatient treatment program for gambling addiction. Emerging, humbled but more clear-eyed than I'd seen him in years. During his treatment, I managed the fallout from his schemes, working with Jackson Phillips to create a restitution plan for the defrauded investors. Victor Blackwood proved surprisingly reasonable once legal channels were established. With Tyler in treatment, I negotiated a structured repayment plan that would satisfy the debt without destroying what remained of Tyler's future. The luxury car was repossessed, the designer clothes sold, the lavish apartment surrendered. When Tyler completed the inpatient portion of his treatment, he moved into a modest company apartment above our oldest warehouse. His starting position at Johnson Building Solutions was exactly what our father had done 40 years earlier. Basic labor on construction sites. No shortcuts. No special treatment. My hands have blisters on top of blisters, he complained during our first dinner together after he started working. Then he looked at his roughened palms with a strange pride. But I built something today. Actually built it with these hands. What did you build? I asked, genuinely curious. Just a storage shed for materials. Nothing fancy. He flexed his fingers. But it'll still be standing tomorrow. That's more than I can say for most things I've done in my life. That small moment of self-awareness gave me hope. Amy remained in Chicago, rebuilding her own life away from Tyler's influence. We stayed in touch, forming an unexpected friendship. She returned all the family heirlooms Tyler had given her, including jewelry meant for me and several pieces that belonged in the family home. More importantly, She provided key testimony that helped unravel Tyler's more complex schemes without requiring criminal charges. "I'm seeing someone new," she told me during one of our monthly calls. "An accountant, if you can believe it. Completely different from Tyler. Steady, reliable." "Happy for you," I said, meaning it. "You deserve steady and reliable." "So do you," she replied. "Have you let Jackson take you to dinner yet? He asks about you every time we talk." I laughed, deflecting the question. Jackson Phillips had indeed asked me out several times since the dust settled. I'd been too focused on rebuilding the family business and monitoring Tyler's recovery to consider it seriously. But perhaps it was time. The most surprising development came 3 months after our confrontation. Tyler approached me with a proposal to restore our parents' house. "It's falling apart in places," he said, showing me a detailed assessment he'd prepared. "The roof needs work, the wiring is outdated, and there's water damage in the basement. We should fix it up." "Together." "Together?" I echoed, surprised by the suggestion. "I've been learning a lot on the job sites. Basic skills, but enough to handle some of the cosmetic work. For the technical stuff, we could hire Johnson crews." He hesitated. "Unless you don't want to, it's your call." "No, I think it's a good idea," I said slowly. "The house deserves to be properly cared for." That began our weekend ritual. Every Saturday, we'd meet at the family home and work on restoration projects. Sometimes we worked in comfortable silence. Sometimes we talked about inconsequential things. And occasionally, when the moment was right, we talked about deeper matters. "I've been thinking about Dad a lot," Tyler said one afternoon as we stripped old wallpaper from the dining room. "About why he structured the will the way he did." I paused, waiting for the familiar resentment to surface in his voice. It didn't come. "He knew me better than I realized," Tyler continued. "Knew I wasn't ready for responsibility. If he'd left me in charge, I would have run everything into the ground within a year." He gave a short, self-deprecating laugh. "Guess I nearly did that anyway." "You're different now," I offered. He considered this, then nodded. "Getting there, one day at a time, like they say in the program." By the 6-month mark, several notable changes had occurred. Johnson Building Solutions was thriving. With 2 major new contracts secured and a reputation for ethical business practices firmly re-established. Tyler had been promoted from basic labor to assistant project manager, a position he'd earned through consistent work rather than family connection. 9 of the 12 defrauded investors had received their first restitution payments, with the remaining 3 agreeing to structured settlements. And I had finally accepted Jackson's dinner invitation, discovering a thoughtful, principled man whose company I genuinely enjoyed. On the anniversary of the cake incident, I decided it was time for a proper celebration of my partnership at the financial firm. The achievement that had been overshadowed by Tyler's actions. "I want to have a dinner party," I told Tyler during our weekly phone check-in. "At the family house. Nothing elaborate, just good food and good people." "Sounds nice," he said. "Need any help setting up?" "Actually, yes. Would you mind picking up the cake? I've ordered one from Benson's Bakery." There was a pause on the line. "Carrot cake?" Of course. The evening of the party arrived, bringing together an unlikely collection of people. Jackson Phillips came as my date. Martin Warren represented the old guard of family connections. A few colleagues from Westfield Financial. Several Johnson Building Solutions employees who'd become friends, and Tyler. He arrived early, carrying the cake box with exaggerated care. "Special delivery," he announced, setting it gently on the dining room table we'd refinished together. Not a single smudge on the frosting, I swear. The dinner was relaxed and enjoyable, conversation flowing easily among the diverse group. When it came time for dessert, Tyler volunteered to serve the cake, a gesture not lost on those who knew our history. As he carefully placed a slice in front of me, he cleared his throat. I want to say something, if that's okay." All eyes turned to him, curiosity evident on every face. "A year ago, I did something unforgivable to my sister on her birthday." He looked directly at me. "I was jealous of her success, resentful of her strength, and too self-absorbed to see how much she'd sacrificed for me. I've spent the last 6 months trying to become someone worthy of being her brother again. Murmurs of appreciation rippled around the table. Jackson squeezed my hand under the tablecloth. I'm not there yet, Tyler continued. The road is longer than I expected, but I'm walking it one step at a time. And I wouldn't be walking it at all if Kara hadn't had the courage to hold me accountable. He raised his water glass. To my sister, who taught me that true family love sometimes means tough love. To Kara, the table echoed, glasses lifting. I blinked back unexpected tears. Thank you, I said simply. After the guests departed, Tyler stayed to help clean up. As we washed dishes side by side, he bumped my shoulder gently with his. So, you and Jackson, huh? I felt myself blushing. Early days yet? But yes, maybe. He's a good guy. Dad would have approved. We worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Tyler spoke again. I've been thinking about something Mom used to say. Remember how she always told us that life's hardest lessons are also the most important? I nodded, remembering our mother's gentle wisdom. I think I finally understand what she meant, Tyler said. When you love someone, really love them, you don't protect them from consequences. You help them face those consequences and grow from them. He dried a plate carefully. That's what you did for me, even when it would have been easier to just write me off. Your family, I said simply, always will be. Family first, he replied, echoing our mother's words. But not the way I thought it meant. Not enabling, not covering up, not pretending problems don't exist. Real family means caring enough to demand better from each other. As we finished the dishes and prepared to leave, Tyler paused at the front door, looking back at the house we were slowly bringing back to life. We're going to be okay, aren't we? You and me? I thought about the journey of the past 6 months, the difficult conversations, the painful truths, the slow rebuilding of trust, the new boundaries, clear and healthy. It hadn't been easy, and we still had a long way to go. But something fundamental had shifted between us. Yes, I said with certainty, we're going to be okay. Walking to my car under a clear night sky, I thought about balance restored. Not the false balance of keeping the peace at any cost, but the true balance of accountability and forgiveness, consequences and second chances, strength and vulnerability. Sometimes the greatest act of love isn't protecting someone from pain, but standing beside them as they face it. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't walking away from toxic relationships, but doing the hard work of transforming them. Sometimes the cake has to fall before something stronger can be built from the pieces. I had learned that true love requires courage, the courage to set boundaries, the courage to demand accountability, the courage to believe in someone's capacity for change, even when evidence suggests otherwise, and most of all, the courage to hold on to hope when it would be easier to give up. That night, for the first time in years, I slept peacefully, without the weight of responsibility crushing my chest. Tyler would continue to face challenges, and our relationship would require ongoing work, but the path forward was clear. One day at a time, one honest conversation at a time, one small act of rebuilding at a time. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between enabling someone you love or holding them accountable? What did you choose, and how did it change your relationship? Comment below with your experiences. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share to help others who might be facing similar challenges with family members. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you the courage to find the right balance in your own relationships, wherever they may be.